Welcome back. This is the Marketer of the Day podcast. We are here with Jonathan Rosenfeld. He is from Rosenfeld Injury Lawyers.com. He's the owning and managing attorney there. They are a full service personal injury law firm handling cases in Chicago and across the US. And we're going to be talking about how Jonathan separates himself from his competitors, how he markets his law practice online, and so many more things. Jonathan, glad to be talking to you.
Pleasure. Thank you for having me.
I'm super glad to have you. And as you know, this is the Marketer of the Day podcast, where it's kind of fun to jump into different industries and see how other people do it. But at the same time, by you being on here, you get that good old search engine juice, that Google ranking, that all those other things that come with it. And so yeah, it'll be fun to find out your perspective. And I've looked at your website. And so what is on your mind these days as far as you and your company and your marketing and just the problems that you're currently solving?
Yeah, I mean, well, I think in today's market, businesses have to realize how sophisticated the consumer is. I think that a lot of times, there's been a tremendous shift really in the past 2, 3, 5 years plus, where marketers and businesses used to be able to get away with, some quasi-sneaky, quasi-sleazy content that may have ranked, it may have drawn customers in the past, but today things have really changed. Today's customer is really much more sophisticated. They tend to have done a lot more homework before they, pick up the phone, contact you or whatever. And so as a business owner and as a marketer, I think you have to acknowledge that and start creating content that really resonates with your consumer. Really, going back to sort of what Google's been preaching for the past, umpteen years, you really have to create content that satisfies, the customer and the search engines, and the days of manipulating search engines with, keyword stuffing, things like that have really gone to the wayside. You have to really adapt. And so one of the things that we're doing right now is we're really, we're redoing a lot of the content that we've had in place for 5+ years. Basically, anything that's, remotely stale is getting revised, rewritten entirely. For the most part, that means really expanding content. Pages that may have been 500 words that may have been written 2-3 years ago, those pages are typically now 2,000 words. And that longer form content seems to perform quite a bit better. And people, there's a lot of different schema markup and things like that you can apply to those pages to get those to pop up. But ultimately, we're doing that. And we're also, really going back and looking at the questions that people are really searching for. I think there was a huge disconnect for a while, myself included. I'm highly guilty of this, creating content that I wanted to get across to people or I thought would resonate with people. And today I look at data a lot more. Data doesn't lie. And, we're creating frequently asked questions that are really geared towards that. We're creating content that's geared towards that. And at the end of the day, that's really what you have to do. You got to put the work in.
And so you're reminding me of just some of these internal struggles that I've had, or some of these arguments that I've had in probably the past decade or so, from some of these things you're mentioning, of like redoing websites, redoing content, putting yourself in the mindset of that more sophisticated consumer who has shorter attention span or has less patience, and they just they know what they're looking for and they're looking for it now. And then you're also reminding me of maybe how it might be sometimes painful to go back and redo that website that you spent a year on, right? Or to go back and fix up those blog posts that, oh man, I spent weeks on writing that one blog post and I really wanted to get that across. But so did you and your team have struggles like that of saying, well, logically, I know I need to throw out the old and kind of spruce it up and keep it fresh, but then emotionally, it's sometimes hard to like let go of some of that content that maybe gets traffic or maybe is ranked, and saying, well, it's kind of good enough, but I emotionally, like, I don't want it to be better because I'm happy where I am. Have you struggled with that?
Absolutely. I mean, who wants to throw out, time, money, effort that they've put into anything? But the truth is that sometimes, you have to do that to get to the next level. And it's really painful. I've done pages where we've revised a page, not just once, but we've revised it 4 or 5 times, within 6 to 12 months. And that part of that is because really our competitors, it depends on your vertical, in the legal sphere, it's a hyper competitive industry. And it's amazing how quickly things are adapting today. And the content that you have written today may be great today, but the guy across the street from you, he may be working on something better, and you got to keep revising it, particularly for your core business pages. Your core business pages, I'm really neurotic about it. I tend to look at that stuff, you know, certainly on a weekly basis, if not a daily basis. And if things start, if I see a downward trend, we're going to start revising that content and start looking at, all different things, internal linking. We're going to start looking at our, link profile for that page. We're going to start really digging in because, it's easier to identify those issues early on than to, sit back and look at things, maybe a few months down the road. So, does it hurt to throw out content? Absolutely. When I look at how much, we scraped about 500 blog posts that were just old, outdated. Some of them were getting some traffic, some, but they just really weren't doing a whole lot. And at the end of the day, I think streamlining websites, having a sort of a lean, mean machine can really help.
And when you're mentioning all that, it's what's coming to mind is the metaphor of, well, do you want to wait until you need a root canal and then it's too late, or do you want to like brush your teeth and get it cleaned over time, which may be like a little unpleasant short term, and you might think, oh, where do I have the time to like brush my teeth and go to the dentist? But you'll end up spending more time later, or you'll be way behind and never get caught up later on if you let this sit and it ends up being too long. So how do you find the time in the day to do this? Do you have like a set schedule? Do you say like, I do this every Monday morning or every day, or just how do you carve out the time to pay attention and to do that, this kind of deep thinking you're describing? Because I imagine that it's not just diving into the code and the schema. You're also like kind of thinking big picture, like all these pages need to be scrubbed, things like that.
I tend to be, when I get an idea in my head, I tend to just go with it and just dig in and go. I know it's not really, it doesn't work for everyone, but that's just how I operate. So if I start digging into something, I will pretty much work until it's done. Is there a better way to do it? Maybe. That's just not how I do it. I tend to really dig in, go deep, hyper focus, and try to get, things, knocked out. It's a lot easier for me to go in and look at whole sections of a website as a whole, whether that's 50 pages or 500 pages or 1,000 pages, and deal with those as a section than it is to sort of piecemeal it. I tend to lose track of things. Also, when you look at things sort of holistically, for me, I have a better idea of how things sort of fit together. For example, as you have an older website, you may have, multiple pages on a very similar topic. And unless you're looking at things sort of holistically, it's really hard to identify those pages that may be actually competing amongst themselves and sort of cannibalizing your content. So I tend to go, sort of whole hog initially, and then I'll start breaking things down by sections or something that may be a little bit more manageable. But unfortunately, you can look at all the different software out there, and at the end of the day, it has to be a human sort of putting the thought into dissecting a website.
And so, and you mentioned software here, and it brings around this question of, well, when you're looking at this big picture, right? You're looking at the whole website, and then you're going kind of further down into the sections. do you use a special software to look at these pieces of your website, or is it a matter of having like 500 tabs open, or like how do you even begin to look at all that of that monster all at once?
Yeah, I mean, we use everything. We use, Ahrefs, we use Screaming Frog, we use Moz, uh, we use, we look at just the data from Google Search Console, analytics. We look at everything, and there's bits and pieces that we sort of, really rely on the software for, but ultimately, you know, unfortunately, I wish there was a better system, but you got to sort of put all those pieces together and sort of come up with, data. Again, I keep going, sort of harping on data, to sort of figure out what fits and what needs to be removed or what needs to be consolidated. We've also been doing a lot of consolidation over the past, year, 2 years, or whatever it's been, and that seems to be really beneficial. You know, it may be really clear, separate pages may be really clear in my head, and they may be really clearly delineated, in my head, but unfortunately it doesn't always resonate with the search engines. And if it's not resonating with the search engines, ultimately your customer or potential customer is not going to even see that material.
And I like that answer a lot, where the question is like, what tool do I use for blank? All of them, right? And I think that kind of, in a weird way, that takes the pressure off, because when I talk to like a SEO guy about this or that tool, sometimes when they say, well, don't use any other tool but this one really obscure specific thing, and I'm thinking, well, I have to stop what I'm already using, and I'm not sure how well developed this tool is, and you might like it, but then in 2 years it might be out of date. And when you talk to these dudes that they do paid advertising, they're like, I'm on all the platforms. When you talk to people that do like video editing, well, I've at least tried out every video editing tool there is, so that way you just kind of grab and use whatever gets you there in the moment. And it almost sounds like kind of like sloppy and haphazard, but I mean, I think that's kind of the way to do it, right? Is to not marry yourself to one single tool, or say nothing else works. Like, you try a little bit of everything, and then when you look at that data, you look at the metrics and the clicks and the traffic, you say, okay, well, this kind of gives me the answer that I need. And so that way you're not too constrained or too technical. And so
Yeah,
what do
I
you
mean, it
think?
also,
Okay.
I'm sorry, but it also really helps sort of double dip and sort of reinforces, one software sort of layers on the other, and it just reinforces your decision. You're making a much more educated decision when you're looking at 3, 4, 5 different data sources than just looking at a program, which a lot of them are very good and they're very sophisticated. But yeah, you're 1,000% right that if you're relying on one thing, there's some things can slip through the cracks, and certain software certainly does things a lot better than others. So yeah, I look at them all, and I take whatever I can.
And you always hear how, I mean, none of these tools are pretty accurate, but they're never 100% accurate. Like, you hear someone say, well, my Google Analytics shows these clicks and my Facebook ads show these clicks. And I'm thinking, well, it is sad that those numbers don't exactly match up, but is that a reason to like completely bring your business to a screeching halt? No, you do the best you can with these tools that you have in front of you. And so there are all these tools we could be using and all these things we could be doing, but you clearly have some of this cool stuff dialed in, right? You have this law firm, but you're also really hands-on with the website. So what is it that you think that you are doing differently and doing better than all these other competitors you have out there?
There's no secret to really any of this anymore. Frankly, we're just really trying to create better content. I mean, it sounds real cliche, but we're trying to do better content. We're trying to do more of it. We're trying to really, be careful about create pages that are really on point with the user intent. We look at, if you look at what people also ask, for example, if you do a search for anything and you see what people also ask, we're creating, individual FAQ pages that sort of mimic what people also ask. Okay. Now, that's not really rocket science or anything. It's not the most sophisticated way of looking at things, but it can be very effective. especially when you scale that, in different areas and things like that. So, I don't know if there's no really secret sauce, other than we're just doing it on a trying to really scale it. I have a team of writers who I've been working with now for several years, and we're sort of, obviously times changed, certain things have sort of fallen out of favor, that we may have been doing, several years ago. But for the most part, we're sort of just getting back to the basics, and just trying to really dive in. We're not taking any shortcuts. We're just really doing the old fashioned hard work. Not very sexy, but that's what we're doing.
And appeasing the Google gods and actually providing the answers to the problems that people are searching. I mean, what a concept. And so yeah, it seems like you're having a lot of fun, and it seems like you're really passionate about what you're doing. So what is the point of you being here? Do you want to draw more attention to you and your law firm, or is there some other offer? Or if someone says, man, this guy Jonathan, like all the things he talked about websites and metrics and web design, I want to know more about everything he has going on. What's the call to action? What's the next step?
Well, the truth is that I am really, I do love this. I eat, breathe, defecate this stuff, and it's just something that I really am passionate about. I want to hopefully, if nothing else, hopefully some business owners look at this and say, oh my gosh, like I got to get off my butt and start, taking action or whatever. But ultimately, I don't do any of this stuff, web stuff, other than for my own, business. But if someone's interested in the law, check out the website, Rosenfeld Injury Lawyers. Hit me up, look on YouTube. We've got a lot of videos. We've got a personal injury podcast. If you've got a question about, SEO stuff, or, God forbid, involved in an accident, give me a call. I'm happy to talk with you about any of it.
Well, fantastic. So that is rosenfeldinjurylawyers.com and Rosenfeld Injury Lawyers on YouTube and on the podcast. And this is a super inspiring meeting we're having, because it's always cool to see like a landscaper or a garage door repair person, or even like an attorney, someone to kind of have their website dialed in, and you go there and you have fun going to the website, and it seems intuitive, and it seems like they really know what they're doing as far as their business. So go there right now, rosenfeldinjurylawyers.com. And any final parting words of advice before we sign off, Jonathan?
I would just say, you know what, keep going, keep doing, keep creating, keep revising. You got to just outwork the next guy down the street. And ultimately, I'm telling you, if you keep doing it, it'll work out for you.